have a hammer, I have a saw, I have some wood. What could go wrong? Hi, future Charlie here. I kind of felt a need to put a little bit of like a disclaimer on this video. I have never done woodworking before, and I have very little regard for my own personal safety. If you are doing a new project at home, please use the amount of caution that you feel is proper and necessary for yourself, which is probably more caution than I used, considering that I made myself bleed 3 times before bothering to put on work gloves. Okay, let's carry on. I have a new obsession. Or rather, I have an old obsession that has been sitting on the back burner for years and is now newly rekindled. 'Tis gardening! Of course it is, because could I possibly be more of a grandma? Gardening, sewing, baking, yep. I've been obsessed with the concept of being able to pick food and immediately ingest it since before I can remember. Like, it's just always been a thing for me. We attempted gardening a few times growing up, but never successfully. And then for, most of my young adult life, I was moving all over the place and living in weird places, like on ships where you can't have plants. You don't even have a window. So I didn't really have an opportunity to revisit gardening until we were living in Florida, and literally just like on a whim, my husband and I went out and bought like a tomato plant and a basil plant, and I think we got some pepper plants later, and threw them all on the balcony, and they grew really well because it's Florida. But then we moved to New York, where we had no balcony, and it sucked in general. But now we are in lovely Southern California, where gardening is once again super duper easy. We moved here last April, and we do have a nice balcony here, but at the time, I did not have really any funds to dedicate to this because, we just moved across the country. I did eventually get to plant like a little herb garden out there, and I did also get 2 sweet potatoes that sprouted in the kitchen, and I cut them in half and stuck them in the ground, and they grew some great vinage, literally like 6-foot long vines, which was super exciting. But it is now January. I now have some extra funds to devote to actually getting my little garden paradise going on this balcony, and so here we go. I'm probably gonna start making videos about it. And by probably, I mean yes, because I'm making one right now. Honestly, my plans are a little bit overwhelming because I've never really gardened from seeds, which is mainly what I'm gonna try to do this year. I don't wanna just buy plants and chuck them in pots because, I don't know, I like to make things more difficult and learn things. The project that I'd like to focus on here is kind of threefold. So this blank wall that I have on the left side of my balcony, it does not get as much sun as the other locations on the balcony. So I looked up a few vinage plants, which I'm sure is the proper term, that can live in shadow, but don't need tons of sun. And my plan is to get a trellis up against that wall, and then a planter at the bottom of that trellis with 2 or maybe 3 vine-style plants in it that can grow up the trellis. I can't just buy things because why? I have to make everything more complicated. I am going to both hand make the planter and the trellis. So that's 1 and 2 of this 3-set project: trellis, planter for outside, and then we just got some extra wood with which I want to build like a little simple 3-shelved shelf. And that is going to be for seedlings. And now I should mention that beyond not having much experience with gardening, I also have almost no experience with woodworking. It's gonna be grand. So of course I have Matt to help me. He doesn't really have experience with woodworking either, but he has experience with power tools at least, and he has power tools. So all of the drilling holes and screwing stuff in, I'm probably gonna get him to either help with or just do himself. I don't want to drill a hole through my hand, and I'm a little bit accident prone. But the first step, because we went super cheap and didn't even get the wood pre-cut for us, is gonna be sawing a bunch of wood. The plans for this planter are really simple. It doesn't need to be super high raised off the ground. I want it to be 4 feet long and 2 feet wide, and then I think it's gonna be like 6 16 inches tall, if I recall correctly. I have two options for the bottom. I could either just do it solid and then we can drill some holes in it, or I can leave the slats separated from each other and then staple in a layer of canvas that will just keep all the dirt from falling out, but allow there to be really good drainage. So step one, measuring, drawing, lines, sawing. And I've just got a little handsaw to do this with, so this could be fun. Could being the key word. Do you see me flying towards the door with eagerness to start sawing? Well, there she is. She is quite a bit bigger than I expected, but I've never been great with like spatial awareness. The 4 feet long is what I wanted, it's what I expected. The 2 feet wide is much wider than I was kind of thinking in my head. It is also taller than it needs to be or than I expected it to be. But yeah, I lay things out and I'm like, that seems too small. And so I changed my design, I think 4 times. Just like lightly changed my plan of how I was gonna construct it. So the bad news here is that that's gonna take a lot of soil to fill it up. That is basically a raised bed at this point, not a planter anymore. So I think at least half of it needs to be filled with just like topsoil, which should be much cheaper. The good news is that I can fit way more plants in there than I was originally expecting. So I'm actually hoping now that I'll be able to get in the 2 vines that I want kind of on the back corners and then fit in anywhere from like 4 to 6 other plants that I'm growing. I do want to clean it up a little bit. Yesterday my arms and back and legs and hands were all too sore because I think that's probably the most exercise I've gotten in years. Yeah, probably years. And then my plan is to sand down lightly the whole thing. I don't care that much. I just don't want it to like give me a huge splinter if I accidentally bump into it. And then I'm going to stain the whole thing. And then the final step will be stapling some burlap or canvas across the bottom just to hold in the dirt because we left pretty big holes in the bottom for drainage. And then it'll be plant time. Yay, plants. Sunflower seeds and wood chips all over the living room floor. You were so tiny and now you're so big. Anyway, so it's kind of a weird time of day to film because it's night and I can't show you anything. So I figured I would just sit here with my lovely little seedlings and chat a bit about what I've done. For starters, the planter is now officially done, trellis and all. I finally got the bamboo in the mail that I'd been waiting on. It was a lot thinner than I thought it was going to be, which actually turned out to be a good thing because it was way easier to like rope it together, and instead of being like really wide because of stacking all of these thicker poles on top of each other, it's a pretty skinny trellis that can just easily be slammed up between the wall and the planter and stay where it is. I looked up like proper techniques for lashing something together, and then I just basically did whatever the crap I wanted, and I don't think there is a single lashing anywhere on that trellis that is the same as another one. But they seem pretty sturdy and solid, so I am really pleased with that project. The planter itself, once I got it stained, it looked so much nicer. Like, wood stain is a miracle. You take this thing that just looks so janky the way we threw it together, and then once you put the wood stain on it, it's like, ooh, so fancy. You made that yourself? Yes, I did. We ended up needing 6 bags of topsoil, and then I topped that with 2 like double-sized bags of actual like raised bed potting mix. So you have a nice thick layer on top of like this good rich soil. And then I'm hoping, you know, by the time the roots reach the not as great topsoil underneath, the plant is established and strong and it'll be fine and fertilizer's gone through and all that. Then the final step of this project itself was making my little seed starting shelf. We just used some really cheap boards, just the same as what we built the planter out of. I cut them all to 2 feet long, so it's like a 2-foot tall shelf with 2 shelves in there. And that whole thing is pretty much gonna sit here in front of the fireplace. Tomorrow, I just have to add the lights to the grow shelf, and then all of my woodworking projects are done for now. I'm really looking forward to what this balcony turns into. This entire project has been so satisfying to me. I love being outside here in California. I didn't always consider myself an outside person, but that's because most of the places that I've lived, like the second you walk outside, you start sweating, and I hate sweating. But here the weather is so beautiful. Even when it's warm, it's like the sun is nice and warm and there's still a cool breeze, and I just absolutely adore being outside here. And then I just love getting dirty. I love the smell of earth. I love having dirt all over my hands and under my nails. It is such a joy for me to get out and dig in the mud and plant something and actually watch it grow. Just seeing these seedlings come up has already been so freaking satisfying. And I am so excited for this year because I know that I'll get to watch all of this stuff grow on the balcony, and it's already looking so beautiful. Truly, it is bringing me such joy. I'm so obsessed with my plants that the poor puppy is getting really jealous of them quite often. He comes and demands pets a lot of times when I'm sitting here staring at my seedlings and watering them, and he's like, "Excuse me, I thought I was your baby." He's a little diva. Oh my god, I've worn myself out. All right, I'm seeing some dry soil, so I must attend to my new babies. Bye!